They say I might as well face the truth.
Hello and welcome back to Game of Moans. It is Season 2, finally. I am Chris Bolton. With me, as always, the Mountain, Mr. Mark Williams.
Hello.
And for those of you who are new here, and God knows why you'd be new here, go back and listen to Season 1. We are pulling apart Game of Thrones an episode at a time and flaying it like a Bolton, which I am wont to do, obviously. Look, we've been away for a while. We're a little late starting back as well. Sorry about that. We had some... issues,
technical difficulties.
By that we mean we've actually recorded this episode once already, and then realised we lost it because we're fucking morons.
Well, to be fair, it was a technical issue. My computer wouldn't save it for some reason. It lost the file path. It lost the temporary file, so I had nothing to save, which was really fucking annoying.
Yeah. So anyway, all of that is a roundabout way of saying sorry we weren't with you last week, guys. I know you're all waiting with bated breath to hear our thoughts on life, Game of Thrones, and other shit. I know no one's waiting for our take on anything, but anyway, I feel
that's not true. I know there is at least one person.
Hello to you.
Hello.
Okay. So here we go then. Season 2, Episode 1, The North Remembers. First and foremost, it's been, I guess for us, 10 weeks, maybe 8-10 weeks since we finished.
Season. Maybe.
Probably not that long even. Maybe more.
I think it's end of August from that.
Yeah, so 6 to 8 weeks. But potentially you've been waiting a year for this episode if you're watching this as it aired. We left the last episode with baby fucking dragons and Jon Snow going out into the wild. We left on quite a high. And so, of course, we start this with a comedy scene with Joffrey.
Yeah, no, I've got this. I when I rewatched this, I quite like this scene. And it's an interesting scene. It's a funny scene. It just doesn't belong as the opener of your season.
No, it's a great scene. It is a great scene. It's very funny. It puts Joffrey over straight away as a complete and utter... Should we go for it early?
Yeah, why not? Puts
Joffrey over straight away as a complete and utter cunt. Wow, that is way earlier than we did it when we last recorded this episode. Go me.
We were fairly limited when we did it on the last one, so we'll have to rectify that this week. To be fair, in my notes, I've actually made notes this week. I've actually written the word cunt in it, so I was going to use it at some point anyway.
I don't think I've ever written... Oh, yeah, I may have. But anyway. Look, this is the plus side, listeners. You've had to wait a week, but we're back on form. We didn't even swear last time we did this. It felt weird. It puts Joffrey over. It does everything it needs to do. It's just
right in the wrong place, really.
Here. Yeah.
I like the scene. It's interesting as well because obviously the first thing you see is there's a battle scene going on with the Hound and some random bloke, and it turns out it's all part of Joffrey's name day celebration thing. So it's not a real fight. It's like the jousting you had, which in the last season where somebody very posh got their throat stoved in. I can't remember who it was. So it's all part of that sort of tradition. That's that sort of bollocks. So it's not serious. Straight away, it diminishes what you think is going to be. Having left off with the Starks marching south and there's going to be a battle, your introduction is going to be, oh fuck, there's a fight. So we're coming into it and they're already fighting. And it actually turns out, no, they're not. And interestingly, the Hound doesn't get the actual killer blow. He knocks him off a ledge and he dies from falling off a fucking ledge.
Yeah.
Which is a bit lame. But anyway, so... straight away you have that, and then Joffrey goes straight into dick mode where he's yes, well struck, don't you think that was well struck, or did you like that, to Sansa? And she just doesn't know how to respond, and he immediately calls her on it saying, yes, I just said that, I wanted your opinion, and immediately set up in this very bullying role which he's going to take forward. And we talked in the last season about how his transformation came pretty much out of nothing. There was no basis for it other than the fact he was an emo little bitch, and irrespective of that, they've run with it, and I think this is they're really starting to really play up to that now, whereby instead of him just being a whiny little mama's boy who has a bit of a mean streak, now he's just being a complete dickhead.
Yeah, and he's great at it.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
love him. I think Joffrey is one of the best villains we've ever had on TV, and I'm not throwing that praise around lightly. I think he's fantastic because he's such an utter little snivelling cockwomble.
Yeah.
And yeah, credit where it's due. You know, he is a fantastic villain, but I don't feel that there is sufficient threat established here that we should start the season with him. It's not like this is setting up some grand... If he was awaiting some grand master plan, then yeah, maybe we'd be straight in at crisis point. But yeah, this just does nothing. But I mean, the scene is good, you know, as you say, it puts Joffrey over, and we get Tyrion returning early on to just run away with the scene, as he always does.
That's it. I mean, to be fair, I mean, I say he absolutely steals the scene, and I think he needed to, because it was going nowhere. It was an entirely pointless scene until that point. Other than the fact that you set up Joffrey as being this sort of slightly maniacal, despotic leader, which he's going to be, and you get to see Sansa playing a little bit of politics, which again, there was an allusion to last season, but there wasn't much of it, and as we go through the show, that'll become far more prevalent. But again, she tells him what he wants to hear, but she also guides, she also presents it as if she's giving a little bit of counsel, when actually she's just like, you're not going to do that, you dickhead, I'm going to stop you doing that, because that's a dick move. So why don't you do this instead? Because you're so brilliant, it would be really good, and it would show you in a really good light if you did this instead of just killing him. And I think it was with the knight who turned up drunk, and so he was going to have him executed. And again, it just shows her being a bit more astute than anybody's given her credit for. And even later on in this episode, I think Kat refers to Sansa as being in the hands of the Queen. And we're already seeing that Sansa actually has a mind of her own. She's just not really had a chance to show it yet. And I think that's going to come more to the fore in this season. And then as we go through, it'll become more and more prominent.
Yeah, I remember this as being the season, as we talked about last season with Sansa, she did very little and was a little bit of a damp squib. But I remember sitting up and taking notice of her in seasons 2 and 3. There's a lot of politics going to come into her storylines, and yeah, that is definitely a character arc and a storyline that I came to love and enjoy. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of that as the season goes on. But yeah, we get Tyrion coming in and instantly chopping Joffrey down to size as well. And
I think that the fact that he comes in and he makes a fuss of the other kids first.
Yeah, that is excellent. Like he comes in and makes a point of making a fuss of those kids, and I'm their favourite and things like that.
Like he addresses Joffrey first because he has to, because he's king. But he makes a fuss of Marcella and Tommen. Then he goes to Sansa, I'm sorry for your loss, and immediately Joffrey's on the back foot because he's not kissing his arse.
Yes, and just the very act of offering Sansa his condolences speaks volumes again of Tyrion's character. Like, he is the only one doing the decent thing here. And yes, it's hollow. You know, yes, Tyrion means it. You can see that he means it, but it's not going to bring Ned back. But still, it is the right thing to do, to offer his condolences. And he means it.
Yeah. That's right, and it harks back to, I think it was episode 2 or episode 3 of the last season, the first season, whereby they're at Winterfell, and Joffrey makes a snide comment about him waking up in a dog pen, waking up hungover, and Tyrion smacks the fuck out of him twice. Yeah. And again, it's teaching him how to behave, how to speak, how to deal with people, how to show respect, how to be a man. Actually, more than that, how to be a king, how to be a man, and how to be a fucking human being. Yes. None of which he seems capable of. And that's exactly why Tyrion is there, and that was given to us at the end of the last season from Tywin. That the king and his mother will fuck things up effectively, so go and sort them out. And that's exactly what he's doing, because I think even Tywin realises, as much as he doesn't have a lot of time for Tyrion, he knows he won't put up with the shit that other people would. Yeah, and there'll be a wonderful moment with that later on as well. But we kind of get an inkling of it here, where, as I say, he makes a big show of favouring the other children, and he pays his respects to Sansa. But it's the cutting line to Joffrey as well. When Joffrey tries to make a fool out of him and bring him down, Tyrion's response straight away is, "We looked for you on the battlefield. You were nowhere to be found." Very much, putting him in everyone's eyes as a weak king immediately, like he was not on the front lines. Well, that's right. And I think even like Joffrey's response is, I was here ruling the kingdoms, and he said, and a fine job you do.
Yeah.
And it's just saying, are you? What are you actually doing? There's war going on. You're doing nothing for your kingdom apart from showing off.
Yeah. So
it was a good scene. I liked it. It just felt like it should have come about half an hour later.
Yeah, it's a very slow start to the season when I feel like we should be straight back in with Jon, if I'm honest, more than anybody. What's going on north of the Wall? Where are the White Walkers? All of this, which, they don't even get mentioned in this episode.
They don't, but there is mention of something in the next scene. Actually, so we can jump forward to it if you like. But in the small council meeting, they mentioned the fact that the long summer has ended and winter must be coming. And it's the longest summer in living memory. To which it's pointed out that that generally means that the winter will be even longer. And then they start talking about peasants and refugees and things like that. So then they get into the politics, which gets a bit boring. But again, it suggests there might be a bit more White Walker action coming up because winter is coming. They didn't say the words, but they've alluded to the fact that actually the summer has ended and now shit's going to go down.
But we get nothing. We just instead get this weird slow start. And look, first episodes of a season are always a bit slow because you need to set your arc up, unless you've ended on a cliffhanger, which we didn't really. Unless you've ended on a cliffhanger and you pick straight back up, then a season opener, no matter what show you are, a season opener is always going to be slow and is generally one of the worst episodes of a season.
Because you've got so much groundwork to lay.
Exactly. But even so, this is so very, very slow and just weirdly paced. It kind of throws us straight into a fight, but it throws us in then with a minor character. Joffrey is still at this point a minor character. I know he'll grow to become the main villain over this season, but do we really care about him at this point? I mean, it would have even have made more sense if it was Cersei rather than Joffrey. So very strange.
It is a strange one, but I mean, it does go back as well to what we talked about at the end of last season, whereby that last episode, that episode 10 of the first season, felt like a season opener.
Yes, very much so.
It felt like they'd done all their work, they tied up their story arcs at the end of episode 9, and then season 10 was kind of like, no, this is how we're dealing with that going forward, but that should have been how we go forward this season, not how we go forward and then have a year break and then we'll come back to it in some shape or form, which we don't really do. It feels a bit. This feels like a second episode. So much like that one felt like a first episode, this one does feel like a second episode, and it feels like it should be carrying on from there, but it doesn't. It feels like there's too much time between the two of them in the story as well as on screen, but not enough distance.
It's almost like Benioff and Weiss don't understand pacing.
No, it can't be that.
Or plot.
Can't be that.
Odd. We'll
anyway.
see plenty more of that, I'm sure. Moving on from this, quite frankly, pointless but enjoyable scene. We get to the small council meeting, which even if we'd have opened with this, it would have made sense.
It would have been a bit more interesting as well. Of course, visually it's less interesting. We don't have the fight and stuff like that, but at least the performances are better. Like you know that when you've got Peter Dinklage and Lynn Headey on screen, it's going to be a very good
scene.
And
they are fantastic in this scene. The sparring between them in this scene is absolutely
brilliant. And I think you even get some decent responding from Varys and Littlefinger, whereby they say practically fuck all for the entire scene, but when Cersei and Tyrion are sparring before she kicks them all out, there's just the odd looks between the two of them.
Yeah.
And from them to Cersei and to Tyrion, where you think, oh fucking hell, yeah, okay, that's really nicely done. It's really deft. It's really light. If you blink, you'll miss it, and you never even know you missed it because it's so innocuous. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't do anything. But again, it just gives you that sense of, oh fucking hell, everybody is bringing something to the scene, apart from dodgy old fucker whose name I can't remember. Is it Pycelle?
Yeah.
Yeah. So apart from him, who just doesn't really add anything once Tyrion comes in, or before for that matter, but that's by the by. There's some really nice work goes on, and then she kicks everybody out. As soon as Tyrion says, well, actually, Father made me hand in his stead, so no, fuck you. She kicks him out, and then again, this between the two of them, it's back and forth is great. And he wears pretty much constantly wears this shit.
Yeah, it's wonderful. He knows he's twisting the knife with every word, and his delivery is perfect. His expressions in this scene are just wonderful. Yeah, he's got this delicious shit-eating grin on his face the whole time.
Yeah, and normally with Cersei, you very rarely see it with Cersei because she's normally so in control and she's so polished and she knows everything's going on around her. When she has to admit to her disappointment of her little brother that actually they don't have 3-star, or they don't have 2-star children anymore, and they don't have Ned because they killed him. They've only got the one because they lost Arya. Again, she's like a naughty schoolgirl. She's like a scolded child who has to admit what she's done wrong.
And all of a sudden, of all the people she has to do it to, she has to admit it and answer to Tyrion.
Yeah, and it's like it's the biggest shame she can think of is that she's being judged.
Yeah. By
him of all people.
Yeah, the biggest shame she can think of thus far.
Thus far.
Yeah.
We'll get to that.
So yeah, wonderful scene. And then I feel like we're on this kind of whistle stop tour, just as we were at the end of the last season. Where here's a bit of this character, here's a bit of this character. We're now kind of doing that. We're whizzing around every character, and again, this show just becomes this kind of ADD nightmare where they don't have the confidence to just say, actually, you know what, let's see, for this week, let's just stick with Jon and Dany and see where they are, because they're our leads. We don't do that. We jump around all over the fucking map.
Well, I think the biggest problem with that at the moment is that they don't actually know who the lead is because they fucking killed him.
Yeah, true.
No, that's a very big problem in this, because, I mean, the last episode of the last season as well, they felt like there was this... I don't want to say a void because that's unfair, but there's a bit of a vacuum where all the time that Sean Bean and the Ned Stark character and the work that was going on with that, all the time that occupied, all of a sudden, it's not there. And it's like that storyline has kind of disappeared as well.
I think, and I'm sure I mentioned this at some point in season 1 as well, but I can't remember which episode it's in. There is a kind of odd dynamic there, though, which I'm not sure that the showrunners ever really fully understood, in that whilst Sean Bean is our lead for season 1, he's the marquee name and he's the lead role, he is not the hero and never was. Jon Snow is the hero of this story, and it's Jon that we should be with now. We should be seeing what Jon is doing and where he's going.
Yeah, and that was my big problem with this episode, is, as you said, there's this sort of slightly chaotic, frenetic jumping around, and you start at King's Landing, then you go to Winterfell, then you go to Dany out in the desert, then you go somewhere else, then you go somewhere else, and it's like you're only ever having one section with each storyline, and it's only the last of 10 minutes you come back to King's Landing and you get anything other than this is what happened in this story, this is what happened in this story, this is what happened in this story, and you don't really get a chance to care about any of it because it's literally in one and done, and you're off.
Yes, and this show is very guilty of that throughout its entire run, and I know I've already talked about that as well, and will continue to every time it comes up. But I mean, we'll get onto this stuff as the episode progresses, but I think the back half of this episode is much better than the front half, and the last 20 minutes are very, very good. But the conversation that we've just had about heroes, in particular, there is again some kind of tonally and narratively weird stuff happening towards the back of this episode, where it just kind of shows that these guys don't actually know what story they're trying to tell themselves yet at this point.
That's right.
And whether that's the source material to blame or whether it's their interpretation of the source material, I don't know, because I haven't read the book. But yeah, we'll come on to it when we hit it later on. But
yeah, I mean, I think to be fair, that's always going to be difficult because the source material wasn't finished.
Yes, true.
And by the time they take over, I think it's season 6 where they take over the writing. So they'll have 3 seasons to put their own stamp on it. Whereas the first 5 they'll try and put I know they'll try and make it as faithful to the book as they can, which they do ad nauseum, and we'll come on to that. We've mentioned that many times already, and we'll keep on mentioning that. But I think the problem is because, like, even though George R. R. Martin was involved, I think he was an executive producer, he was involved with the development. I'm not entirely convinced he knows where every fucking strand is going.
No.
Because there's so many of them to pull at, and I think that's part of the problem is that they don't really know where to focus, and that's why this episode is so disjointed and very little flows. It's just it seems like an episode full of snippets and scenes rather than a coherent episode.
I think George R. R. Martin probably knows where his story needs to end up. I think he is guilty of being a fantasy writer, and I've vocalized my thoughts on high fantasy plenty of times on this podcast already, and I think rather than work out how he's getting to his story and telling it, he is guilty of meandering all over the fucking place, and when he finds an interesting avenue to go down, he'll take a little wander down it. I don't know, I haven't read the books, but that's certainly what, if this show really is that close to the books and the source material is to blame, then I definitely think that is what's happening. Now, when we get the final books, it's quite possible that a lot of the issues I have with this show would be resolved. I'll never know because I'm not reading all of those books to catch up, because Jesus, that's a big time investment. So, well,
Christ, yeah. I mean, you're probably talking near enough 1 million words if you were to read every book.
Jesus, so that's like 1 million words. That's like fucking hell. That's a couple of hours worth of talking for me. I'm not. Fuck that.
That's like the entire first season of this show. But yes, I mean it is difficult. I think that's part of the problem. I think, as I say, there's a lot of meandering. There's a lot of that. I mean, we've talked about sort of how you deal with characters as well, and sort of characters who have a very fleeting role in this sort of stuff. You don't necessarily need to bring them in. Like, for example, I mean, we don't see him in this episode. He appears in this episode, but he doesn't speak. Hot Pie is a prime example. Hot Pie gets an entire fucking character arc.
Yeah, we don't need it. You adapt. Just
what the
ditch
fuck
him.
For?
Like,
yeah, it's not. Apart from the worst. Probably the worst line in fucking recorded history. I kicked him in the balls until he was dead.
On, that's amazing. that was,
well, yeah, it's one of those so bad it's good.
The season for me, that.
But I mean, that character adds absolutely feck all.
Yeah, you're right. But again, we've mentioned this before as well. When you're adapting, you can take minor characters like that and snowball 3 or 4 of them into one. You can make a composite character, but they just don't really do that. So
yeah, like I'm looking now. I've got the wiki page up for this episode in front of me actually, and I'm looking at the guest appearances. I have no idea who half these fuckers are.
If you don't know, I definitely don't know.
Who is Gren? Who is Edison Tollett? Who's Lommy Greenhands? Who the fuck named Lommy Greenhands? By the way, what a fucking stupid name that is. Lommy Greenhands. But no, these people I don't even know where they appear. I don't believe they're ever mentioned by name in the episode, so what's the fucking point?
Hell. Are they all Craster's wives or something?
No, they're all dudes.
Yeah,
so
I wouldn't put anything past Craster. No.
Well, not in this show. But yeah, so I mean, it's one of those, you think, well, you've gone to the trouble of writing these characters and giving them names, and presumably they've got something to do. But I have no idea who they are, and I watched it an hour ago.
Jesus.
So, I have no idea who these fuckers are. So, what's the point? Why did you need those characters? Why did you need to give them names and presumably give them some form of backstory at some point? It may have been in the book, but here they could have been guard number 1, guard number 2, extra number 4. No, and it wouldn't have made any fucking difference.
No, none. But yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, wider problems. Yeah. We'll touch on this plenty. Getting back into this episode, as I say, we're jumping around everywhere. We end up with we get back to Winterfell with Bran sat there having. I'm going to give it a name, okay? Because this scene pops up. We've already seen it a few times last season. We'll see it many more times, especially where Dany's concerned, or any time anyone sits on a throne. So I'm going to call this peasant problems. Okay, this is the peasant problem scene.
It's busy making, is what it is.
It is, absolutely. I mean, it does give us chance to peel a layer back on whoever is holding the upper hand in the scene. In this case, Bran, whoever sat on the throne. It lets us see what kind of ruler they may be, which gives us some reflection of their character as well. But, you know, look, it's a useful tool for that, and I understand the need for it, but when it's used as repeatedly as it is in this show, it just loses all effectiveness.
It does, and it's kind of one of those you think, well...
Effect. Sorry, bad English. It's Monday night, everyone, so... You know,
yeah, it's been a long couple of weeks, but yeah, it's one of those that for me it's busy making. It's where characters don't have anything else to do, but you want to remind people they're there. So you want people to remember that Bran is there, and he's in this situation that he doesn't want to be in. He's not comfortable. He's not. Things aren't. His life isn't fucking rosy anyway. And then you've got some blithering old idiot complaining that his 80-year-old walls are falling down.
Yeah, and you get told that listening to people you'd rather not listen to is one of your responsibilities. And really,
listening to this fucking scene.
If nothing else, the scene just kind of exists to parallel one with Joffrey later on, and it just gives you. Bran being nice and listening to this, despite the fact he doesn't want to, just shows us how much more of a douchebag Joffrey is in later scenes.
It does, but I mean, even that, there's a far better parallel scene to it. To the Joffrey scenes with Rob later on. So I mean, this doesn't really add anything apart from, again, it gives Maester Lewin a chance to crack a little joke, which is not funny and not necessary. This entire scene, for me, it's just to give Bran something to do.
It's a calling card of this show by now, I would say. You know?
But I mean, if you want to do that, if you want to remind people that Bran is there, the next two scenes are far more important and far more useful, because you're starting to see this again, this stuff with Bran, where the next scene is this POV shot of this running through the woods. It's very fast. It's very frenetic. It's really dizzying. And then when the camera, the point of view camera gets to a pond or a lake or whatever it is, it looks down and it's a direwolf, and then Bran wakes up. So that, that's fine, and that leads into the next scene, and that's giving us more of a clue as to what's happening with Bran and where he's going to go, and so the journey he's going to go on over the next couple of years. The previous scene, to me, it
does nothing. It's just, as I say, these scenes exist throughout the show just to give us some sort of character insight, and they're fine, they're functional. They just don't really add anything. And as you say, the next scene with Bran is far superior. It's actually a really nice scene. It's really well put together. Yeah. There's some nice symmetry as he sort of looks into the pool, and then you find out that he's sort of framed in exactly the same way that he is when he's the direwolf in his dream.
And the way Osha takes him from Hodor's back and puts him down, and he sort of has to crawl that last yard or so to the edge of the water. Again, it's beautifully placed, it's beautifully framed, and it looks really nice. And even the scene where you've got the direwolf's point of view, where it's running through, you see the way it's coloured as well. Everything's sort of faded and very greyish and very bleak. And then you get to the blossoms on the tree, and they're very vivid. And again, that sort of motif will be played up throughout the show as especially when we come back to this location. And that sort of thing I thought was really interesting. But by this point, we're only 10 minutes of the episode. I'm already thinking, fuck, I've already got 50 minutes of this.
We've sort of skimmed over it a little bit, but we've just had the comet as well, which...
Well, we haven't had that yet. We'll come to that. That's my next note.
What the fuck is up with the comet? Seriously.
Well, that's it. I mean, as a device, we watched this, we did the short episode last week, I said that, and it failed. So, we did talk about this quite a lot last week, but I liked the imagery the first time they did it. You see this comet, and there's the talk between Osha and Bran about what it means, and it's the first time you've seen it. So they talk about it's. I heard the men saying it foretells a great victory for Robb in the south, and then she says, "Oh, well, I heard stable boys saying it's blood for your father. And I heard somebody else say it was something else." There's only one thing that comets mean, and that's dragons. And he says, "Well, dragons don't exist anymore." We've seen the fucking things.
Well, he hasn't.
He hasn't, but we as an audience have. So they're not building up to anything anymore. And they did this a lot in the last season as well. Is that they told us things we already knew as an audience.
They're guilty of that all the time. But I mean,
I know from a show perspective, from a narrative perspective, yes, nobody else knows there are dragons apart from the handful who are still with Daenerys, who we'll come to in a second. So nobody knows about the dragons yet. But we as an audience have already seen them. So don't be so fucking glib with us to say, "Oh, but there's dragons coming." We already know. We've seen the fucking things last week.
I think it's just there was a linking passage so that we then cut to the baby dragons. And
well, yeah. And saying that, there's the shot, the comet itself, I thought was a really interesting device, and when they first used it, I thought, oh, okay, that's quite cool. But they used the same fucking shot and the same thing for the next like 5 or 6 scene transitions. It's like Homer with the star wipes.
Anywhere either. It's
no. I don't remember ever seeing a comet ever again in the fucking show.
Yeah, it's like the prime example of how not to utilize Chekhov's gun. It's like here is a thing.
Oh yeah,
it's
definitely.
very important, and we're going to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone's going to talk about it, everyone's going to look at it, everyone's going to stare longingly and wistfully at it.
But it'll do fucking nothing.
Yeah, we'll never mention it again. In the entire 7 years that are left to run on this show, we will never mention this fucking comet again.
And it has no symbolic meaning whatsoever. Like, it's
none whatsoever.
It's a waste of a special effect. And yeah, the explanation even, I can only think it exists to tie us into the next scene where we see the dragons, because otherwise, Osher's logic of a comet means dragons. Because why? Because dragons come from space?
Yeah.
Are they magic space dragons?
Well, yeah,
like the
that's it.
Are they soup dragons? Mate, that's it, Mark. How did I not hit on that last week? It's the fucking soup
obviously
dragons.
That's it. Well, that's it. But we talked about this last season as well. There's a scene in the last season which is very similar where, again, they're by the weeping tree, aren't they? And Osher and Bran have a similar conversation, and she's introducing him to some of the groundling history, not groundling, the fucking wildling history, and some of their superstitions and stuff like that. And it's quite a nice tie-in to that, except it fucking goes nowhere.
Yeah, it's pointless.
As I said, apart from it sets up the next scene, which we had quite easily done without that line.
Yeah, it is literally there to give us an in so that we can cut back to Daenerys and see the dragons, who are super fucking cute. Baby dragons, super cute.
Yeah, still bite your fucking cock off though, so I wouldn't try anything.
Hey, I keep a dragon. It's never bit my cock off. So then again, never wave my cock at it. So,
well, there you go. But yes, I mean the whole thing. I mean the whole thing of the comet is just there as a transition shot between scenes. I say it's like Homer and his star wipes. Now, why use anything else? Why try anything else? We've got it. We're going to use it. Apart from the fact it's fucking pointless. And as we go through, we'll see that this shot gets used again and again and again. Just in one occasion, they make it nighttime, so they have to retreat it and regrade the shot. But yeah, it's fucking pointless.
I mean, time is problematic on this show anyway, as we know. But the fact that everybody is seeing the comet puts them all in the same kind of time space.
Yes.
And that doesn't necessarily stack up, because it seems as though Dany has been on the road for months here.
Well, she's lost all the baby weight, hasn't she?
She's lost all the baby weight. The dragons have grown. The Dothrak are hungry because they're starved. The horses are dropping like flies. Which also, again, like, how does this get through any kind of fucking read where you have a fucking storyline that goes, oh yeah, the men are starving, we need to feed them, then an entire fucking horse dies,
drops dead,
and you don't eat the horse?
Well, the stupid thing is, right, okay, you start this scene where she's trying to feed the baby dragon and it won't eat, and she said, oh, and you've got one of her slave women, whatever they are, saying, oh, well, what are they supposed to eat? Oh, they're supposed to eat meat. Horse drops dead, and the first thing I thought was, oh, well, she's going to feed the horse to the dragons. And then they start talking, well, the men are starving. Well, feed them the fucking horse then. Yeah. Pretend it's corned beef.
Yeah. Well, look, I don't think it matters whether you pretend it's anything. If you're starving,
just eat the fucking thing. It's meat.
Yeah.
You're in the middle of the desert, there's no food, there's probably very little water, just eat the cunting thing.
Either don't have that happen at all, although I understand why we need to see that, so we can understand the gravity of this situation. The horses are exhausted and starving too. Okay, I get that. But then, if you're going to do it, then let's go all the way. Let's go all in on this. Let's see her butcher her prized horse.
Well, that's it, because I mean the next part of it is where she says, "Oh, this is the first gift that Drogo ever gave to me." So it's a nice little callback to Drogo, because I'm fairly sure that Aquaman's still fucking smouldering somewhere.
Hey, look,
and she's moved on.
Aquaman is barely fucking rotting, and she's already fucking this other dude that she's sending off.
Well, that's it. Because I mean, she does the thing, and it's not really, it's not stated, but it's fairly fucking obvious. Where she goes out, she says, "Oh, I'm sending you to the east, you to the northeast, you to the southeast, or wherever it is, and find land, find sea, find a caravan, find whatever you can, and just get us something." So I appreciate that. But then she singles out one, and oh no, blood of my blood, no, do this for us. Oh, you've never let me down before. And then, who the fuck is this bloke?
She's clearly fucking him. Clearly.
Oh, absolutely. I was like, Aquaman's still fucking smouldering in the corner. You ain't cold yet.
No, and just to take pause for thought there, I said right back in the intro to show 1, and it was our first discussion about this show when we said we wanted to do it. Like, the whole point is there are decisions that will be made by characters later in the show which have greatly angered people.
Yes.
And whilst there is plenty that angers me in this show all the way through, a lot of the stuff that happened in the final season, I was pretty much okay with. When I was angry with stuff, I was really fucking angry. But most of it, I was okay with. And Danny's whole... I'll dance around the spoiler, but Danny's whole thing there, her whole turn, if you like, has been there since day one. And I've always argued that it has been. And this is a prime example. Like, people are things to her. She has a mission. She is determined to do what she is setting out to do, and she will do it by any means necessary. She took what she needed from Drogo. He's gone. She's moved on. She'll take what she needs from someone else.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, I don't know. I'm the same. I had issues with season 8, and I had issues around that particular development, but not for the actual development, but the execution. I thought the execution was
poor. The execution's piss poor, but
I mean, that's a different
sense.
thing. I mean. Yeah, I mean, that's it. It's been there from day one, and it's every now and again it just crops up, and people are very quick to forget that. I mean, there are instances probably in every season at least once where Dany will go off the fucking reservation, and she will do something particularly cruel, particularly senseless, or particularly fucking stupid. Yeah, because it's in her nature.
Yeah, it is, and as I say, we see it even here, just in her speeches and the way she's acting to him. Like, she is clearly moving on. She is aligned with the next most powerful person in line.
Who isn't Jorah?
Well, I mean, Jorah doesn't have any sway really with the Dothraki. That's his problem.
Well, no, But I mean, later on, obviously, their relationship develops to a point whereby he has a far greater import to. But I mean, again, we talked about it in the last season quite a lot, that there seem to be a lot of scenes, especially with her, that are written in two halves. It's like two different people have written the scene.
Yes.
So the first half is kind of like, we'll do a bit of world building, we'll kind of set everything up, we'll make it kind of frivolous and kind of fun and not really do anything to drive the story forward. And then there's like a crash event, and then the rest of the scene is taken up by, oh my god, this happened, why did this happen, how did this happen, what are we going to do about it, where are we going to go next? And it's so bloody frantic, and they could have, if they're going to devote that much screen time to these characters, use the time better, and rather than having a scene of two halves, have one scene that's complete and does what you want it to do to drive your narrative, not just piss around and waste time. Because the whole thing about what do dragons eat, oh well, it's supposed to be meat. Well, what did your brother say? Well, my brother didn't know fuck all about dragons. It's a nice callback to Viserys, but
we don't need
he's already dead.
Yeah.
We hear very little about him, and if you were that curious, you'd have probably watched the previously on bit before the episode started, or on the DVD before you hit play episode 1. So I mean, it doesn't really matter, and it just kind of wastes about 3 minutes of screen time where nothing fucking happens.
I think if he was of any import to later elements of the show, if he had any impact on later narratives, then yes, keep him fresh in people's minds and call back to him like that every now and again. But he is dead and gone and has no relevance to anything in future. So just let him be dead and gone.
The only future reference will be she names one of the dragons after him.
Yes. But
so that's the only time that Viserys gets mentioned, because she calls one of the dragons Viserys, so she's then not talking about her brother, she's talking about a dragon.
That doesn't really matter because it has no bearing on her character or any of her narrative. So if you haven't met Viserys in the first season, you haven't missed anything in that.
Yeah, who fucking cares?
Yeah, exactly. So it's pointless. But anyway, waste of a scene, but at least we've seen where Dany is and what she's doing. Why we couldn't have opened with that one instead of the Joffrey one, beyond me.
Well, again, more interesting, kind of sets
and it picks up where we left
for the
off.
Series.
So,
well, exactly. That would have been quite helpful.
Yeah.
But it's just fucking weird.
I mean, really speaking, and God knows why I didn't think of this last week. Maybe I'm more alert this week. I did have a bit of the lurgy last week. If we're going to use this narrative device of this comet to try and tie everyone together, why didn't we open on the comet?
Well, yeah, exactly. Why did we read 4 scenes before we see
why didn't we just open on the comet and have the comet take us to every character, and then at least it would have made some narrative sense?
Yeah, it would have meant something. There would have been a purpose to it. Not, we've got a spare 10 grand. Should we just fucking animate this comet? That's not going to do anything.
And then you tie it all back up in the last scene where, as Gendry's on his way off, he looks up at the sky and there's a comet.
Yeah, and there's your comet. Yeah,
that is not hard.
That would be too easy, wouldn't it? No, that's right. I mean, it just seems to be something they've gone, that would be really cool if we put a comet with a red tail. Well, what for? I don't know. Be cool to look at.
Because we had like a spare fiver left in the budget, so
it's entirely pointless.
Yeah, it is. But anyway, there's that scene. Moving on.
So again, Danny looks wistfully up at the sky to this comet, and then you come back down, and we're in the frozen north again, where we should have been starting with these two.
Yeah, and we're like probably 25 minutes, half an hour in at this point, and
possibly
here's our hero. Finally.
Yeah. And the first thing we get is, again, a joke.
Oh, it's a good one, though.
It is good, but again, it doesn't feel like it should be the opener scene.
But it is a good one.
It is good. Yeah, I mean, you and I both been there. We were both fat kids. I'm still fat now. So a joke about, your fat ass sank the cart or broke the cart. We only gave you a lift because you were moaning about your feet. It's that's you can buy into that. You can appreciate that, and the relationship that's been built up over the first season with those characters, you can kind of believe it. But again, it just doesn't feel like it should be where we've just come from. And you've got this dire situation where people are starving to death, and you get this device of the comet. They don't use it. They don't use the time the time they can build to ride into that scene. You start straight off with this joke, which it's funny, but it doesn't feel like it belongs where it is. No,
it really doesn't. But the cart breaks, so they go to take shelter with Craster, who's just a fucking charmer, isn't he?
Oh, he's a fantastically lovely man, isn't he?
Absolute tosser of a character.
Diamond. No, I said I'd written the word cunt in my notes, didn't I? This is it. Craster, what a cunt.
Other than the obvious introduction of Gilly, I could really do without all of this, if I'm honest.
To be fair, there is one thing, and it sets up 3 things. This scene, there's a purpose, 3 purposes to the scene. One is you introduce Gilly. Mm-hmm. 2, you set up Mance Rayder.
Yeah, they do a very good job of setting Mance up as this legendary figure.
Yeah. And I mean, it's one of those. And again, this show is so guilty sometimes of smashing you over the head with things. They don't do that here. You don't know. They tell you that they name check Mance Rayder. He used to be a man of the Night's Watch, and then he fucked off and did his own thing. And now he's raising an army. They've set him up, but they haven't gone into who he was, why he's getting himself an army, why he's going to go south. They haven't done any of that. We'll find that as we go along and we get introduced to the wildlings. That'll all come up later on. I think that this is one of the really good examples they've done, but they're few and far between generally in the show because no one gets smashed over the head with the high fantasy bullshit where they introduce everybody about 6 months before you see them.
Yeah, you do, but I feel like there's been a real quantum leap between season 1 and season 2 here. In terms of that, like definitely. Season 1, we were literally, and I bemoaned it for ages on. It seems like every episode, we had like 10 minutes of that's so and so's sister's cousin's third, twice removed budgie's dog sitter or whatever, and I don't give a fuck.
Exactly. Well, that's it because it doesn't do anything. You don't need it.
It's poor. Whereas here, they feel a lot more. Whilst I think structurally the show is still messy and there are some very poor narrative decisions made still, they feel a lot more confident in their writing and a lot more confident in their storytelling ability. Just to not treat the audience as idiots quite in the same way that they did in season 1. They're just like, oh, look, we're going to tell you all about Mance Rayder here, but we'll mask it in the form of giving you these legends so it's a lot more interesting to you. We build him up this suspense so that when you meet him, he's already this larger-than-life character. And it's not done with a slap in the face kind of way that we were introduced to pretty much all of the Lannisters, for instance, in season 1.
Well, I was going to say Tywin was going to be my prime example. The first time you meet him, he's skinning a fucking deer. For no other reason than he's skinning a fucking deer. So yeah, I mean, I like the way it was done in this with Mance. I thought it was really interesting. I mean, the way it'll build up through this season, I think, is really important as well. So yeah, I mean, that was one of the points of this scene. And the other one, it's a throwaway line, which I can guarantee most people watching will forget by the time it becomes important. Where they're talking about, saying, he marries his daughters, and Jon says, "What about his sons?" And it's such a throwaway line because you think, well, maybe he doesn't have any sons. Maybe he drowns them at birth. Maybe he sells them into slavery. I don't know. When we actually find out what happens to the baby boys in like a season or a season and a half's time, for me, that's important, but we won't remember about it because it should be important.
It's
but
not, though, because it's another one of those things that just happens and is never mentioned ever again.
Well, it introduces something which we'll come on to when we get to that episode. I don't want to give away too much for people who may be playing along at home. But yeah, it's one of those that it's so innocuous and it's so far removed from when it will actually become a thing that you're not going to remember it. If you do remember it, you think, what the fuck's that about? Yeah.
So yeah, I guess there's that, and of course we do, we get more of this relationship between Jon and Mormont, which I love. It's more of the evolution of Jon as a leader, although this feels slightly out of step here, that I think he's probably come on far enough that he wouldn't be as stupid as he's portrayed in this scene.
Yeah, I think it's one of those. It's a double-edged sword because on the one hand, yes, he's grown into that role where he's thinking, actually, I am going to speak up for people because I think it was a really stupid comment. It was a stupid thing he actually responded to, where there are other things he could have responded to which were far more important. But again, it's this thing of, I'll speak my mind, I'll say my piece because nobody else is doing it for me, and I feel that I have to make a statement or I have to do something. So there's that, and that will come up time and time again with Jon, whereby he has these big, he has important decisions to make, he has big decisions to make that people may not necessarily like. So he's growing into that thing where he feels, I will actually speak, I will do something. But again, he's naive enough to get it wrong, and he says the wrong thing at the wrong time, and he gets called out on it. And that again, that informs his development. But I think you're right. I think that was probably needed about halfway through season 1, when he's learning that yes, okay, you're a good fighter, and you can teach the men how to fight. But in terms of diplomacy and tact, you're a fucking child.
It feels like a slight step backwards for him.
And only slight. I think you're right. I don't think it's a massive problem.
Again, though, I feel like with a lot of these characters right now, and this again is a problem with pilot episodes for a season, like, there, especially being the start of season 2, there is a larger than normal probability that this could be quite a few people's first episode of Game of Thrones. They may have come into this having not seen season 1 and then have maybe gone backwards later on. People do that all the time. I couldn't personally, but people do.
No, I think it's my OCD wouldn't let me do that, but I think that's just me.
No, me either. I'd have to watch from the beginning. But, that's the thing that people do. So, it's kind of like the Stan Lee method of every comic book is someone's first comic book, so you constantly have to reinforce Spider-Man's origin, and you constantly have to reinforce Captain America's origin, and it might just be in a throwaway line, or it might be in an action and their response to that action. And I kind of feel like maybe I think at least that's what the intent is here, because I've been thinking about this a lot since last week, and I think that is the intent here with Jon, in that it doesn't stick in your teeth so much if you've already seen season 1 that you're like, oh, fuck off, he wouldn't do that, because he is still learning. And it does, I think, if you're a new viewer, inform to you that this, because he looks every inch the hero by now. He's in his furs, he's got the sword, he's clearly got the most expensive makeup and wardrobe out of everybody. He's
definitely,
at this point, he's one of the poster boys for the show. So it's important, I think, to then acknowledge that actually, no, he's still young and he's still learning.
Yeah, he's still learning.
And I think that is the intent here. And they managed to walk that tightrope, I guess, reasonably well. I think maybe they lose the back foot slightly, but they do it. They do it fairly well. It didn't stick in my teeth enough that it really fucking annoyed me.
Yeah,
so,
no, that's fair.
You know, as I said, credit where it's due. I think the writing is a lot more confident here. And whereas last year they would have just given you John's backstory in one big blurb around a campfire or something, they decided to approach it a little bit more eloquently, and I'll give them props for that, even if they didn't quite stick the landing.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, it was fine. I mean, again, even though the fact that it's never been, it's not been mentioned in this episode, you know, he's constantly reminded of the fact he is a bastard. So, I mean, we don't get the whole thing again of who his father wasn't and all the rest of it. All we get is, what's his name? Jon Snow. Listen here, bastard, and then he moves on. And I think that, again, that shows a bit of an evolution in the confidence that the writers have in the audience.
Yeah, definitely. Because
they trust that people will actually remember, oh, fuck yeah, his father was his father knocked somebody up, and now he's the result of it. He's not a true-born Stark. But we don't need to be told that again. And I think it's a nice way they've actually gone about it.
So, you know, I guess there is some purpose to this scene. It certainly brings us back to Jon because we need to see him. But yeah, I'll be pleased when we don't have to see any more Craster. Not a fan.
Yeah. No, disgusting old man.
There's a thing about old men in this show. A lot of them are just gross.
Well, yeah, and I think the ones who aren't, so the ones who are slightly more moral, tend to be slightly maligned for it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in this scene whereby, you know, even Craster's, you know, is having a pop at Mormon, so, well, yeah, you know, he says, Mormon tries to be diplomatic, so we chose different paths. What he wants to say is you're a disgusting little fucktard who shags his daughters. But what he says, we took different paths, and immediately just turned back at him and said, yeah, yours is the one that had nothing but boys on it, again, implying he's some sort of kiddie fiddler or something. Just because, you know, why else would you be hanging around with boys when you could be off, you know, shagging your offspring or whatever? So, and again, it's just always turned back on any sort of noble or righteous characters. And you had it with Ned as well.
Yeah.
Their virtue was kind of thrown in their face.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think you get a lot of that. I mean, Craster's a very good example of that, whereby he will just use anything to fuel his own ego effectively. So, well, yeah, I'm better than you, because I've got all these women hanging around me. The fact that all your daughters will scare shitless of you is neither here nor there.
Yeah, no, that's good point. Although, having said that, I think even when you get a character like Mormon, then where that tries to get thrown back in his face, he's still able to come away from that with an element of dignity.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Which again plays into the conversation he has with Jon, whereas, you know, the likes of Craster and Walder Frey are just irredeemable, disgusting old men.
Yeah, that's true. I think that portrayal. I mean, I can't remember who plays Mormon, but he comes across as very dignified. He's always very, very dignified, very stoic at times, and I think it serves him well. I think the actor does a very good job actually, and sometimes he doesn't always get the best lines. Sometimes the writing's a bit iffy. Well, if that's the thing on this show. I
mean, that's fucking hell. That's this show for you, isn't it? So.
But he always comes out of it particularly well. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one. The way that these characters like that are handled is generally not that favourable. But somehow he still manages to come out of it looking like James Bond compared to this other cunt.
Yeah, not difficult to come out on top here, really, is it?
Yeah, true.
So that's that scene done and dusted. Let's move on. No more to fucking say about it. It's a little bit pointless.
Yeah, but then talking about pointless, we get the fucking comment again.
Yeah. Now, if the comment was ever going to mean anything anyway, surely it would be here.
Yes.
Surely Melisandre would be explaining to us what it is.
Yeah, all over that shit. Yeah, explaining the meaning or explaining the significance of the symbolism and all the rest of it. Now, the thing that bugged me with this, right, is apart from that, it's an entirely fucking pointless shot. It's the same shot as before, except now they've gone and made it nighttime. What the fuck for?
Yeah.
It was pointless enough as it was, but then to go and frame it in such a way that actually, it's nighttime as well.
Good point.
The color palette hasn't changed. They haven't graded it properly. They've just changed the background.
Good point.
And I say, if ever it was going to be important, it's this scene, but they just ignore it completely. Everybody ignores it completely anyway.
Yeah.
But it's just like, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you spending the money? And then when we get to the end of the scene, I've got another point on the comic, but we'll get to that when we get to the end of the scene.
Okay, so I mean, you're dead right. Why even bother? but nevertheless, it's something they did. It's pointless. But the main thing about this scene, this is where it turns for me, is from this scene out now, I think is pretty much great until the end. And this scene, primarily, it just introduces us to a whole new arc and a whole new set of characters that we've really heard about but not really met at this point. So I mean, it's our introduction to Sir Davos. Have we seen Melisandre before?
No, this is her first appearance as well. And Stannis.
And of course Stannis, who is already fucking 10 times smarter than Ned within a scene.
Well, yeah, I mean, well, that's it. And he even calls him out. We've talked about how stupid Ned was. That he went to the person he was going to out and said, "I'm going to out you," and B, he didn't tell anybody what the fuck was going on. He had nothing to back it up. So his first thing is, right, okay, read me back this memo. Like we've all had this shitty boss who dictates something. You write it down and they change it as you're reading it back. So he's there. He said, "Well, no, that's not what I said. That's exactly what you said." Well, no, I didn't mean that. Put something else in. And he's doing that. So, I mean, it's there for comic effect, and it's there to give him, again, this sense of gravitas and importance. He honours the fact that he's the rightful blood. No, he's the rightful heir by blood because Joffrey's not, and he honours the fact that Jaime is a knight, so we address him as a knight. He's quite traditional in that sense, but he's like, Ned Stark's biggest failure was that he only told me about this. Well, I'm going to tell every fucker, because at least then people will know what's going on. And it'd be a lot harder to silence me once every bastard in the kingdom knows. So, yeah, absolutely straight away, he's like, no, Ned Stark fucked this up. I'm not doing the same.
Yeah, and he's instantly smarter than Ned, so I like him already. He'll be a character that very much has his ups and downs, but here, for the most part, I'm liking him. Yeah, I mean, as we go on, his character will do some good things, some bad things, and I think that generally he's pretty well portrayed. And I think that I haven't seen much of him on rewatch, so I mean, I don't know that, but from memory, I think he's generally well handled for the most part. As his character arc goes on, he will do some fucking horrible things.
Well, yeah, but so does everybody in this show, and that's just kind of part of it.
For the most part, he seems like probably the most level-headed person in the race for the throne.
Well, yes and no. He's kind of a bit like a cult leader.
Well, I mean, look, like religion is fucked. I'm sorry if you're a religious person listening to this. These are my views. You're perfectly entitled to your own, and I encourage you to follow whatever is in your heart. But religion is fucked, if you ask me. So, but that doesn't make him a fucked up person.
No, it doesn't. But I mean, this scene is quite interesting. The first scene where they're on the beach and they're presumably they're burning the old gods. They're burning the symbols of the old gods. And you've got Melisandre doing all this stuff about the Lord of Light, and the Lord of Light has chosen his envoy or whatever the fuck Stannis is supposed to be, and she talks about the burning sword, which is a great callback in like 6 years' time. That'll come back again. He pulls the sword out of the fire and stabs it in the sand, and the fire all goes out. It's really nice symbolism. There's some really nice foreshadowing as well, which I think is really important. I think it's one thing that when it's done well in this show, it really pays off. But yeah, it's this whole thing. You've just got these fanatical followers who just there like on a beach, and woman in red says to burn shit, so we'll burn it. And the priest who's like, no, you were all named in the light, you're named in the light of the old gods, and in fact you were christened and all this. No, these are the things you swore to follow, but now you're off with this heathen, this heretic, whatever else. And people just don't want to listen because they've been seduced or blinded or whatever, or brainwashed, whatever it may be. The fact that this is the way forward and this is the path of salvation, this Lord of Light and all that bollocks. And it's quite an interesting thing, but I always have likened Stannis, certainly when you get some of the decisions he makes later on as well, it's kind of like he's a sort of David Koresh character. He believes in what he's doing, and he has somebody who's guiding him in the name of the Lord or God or however you want to frame it, that he will only take counsel from this person to a point where when the counsel becomes fucking stupid and people start turning on him, he still doesn't care, because there's this almost fanatical following, and there's knowing what's coming. It's easy to read back into this scene and what you get. But even like the speech he gives, and the fact you've got the Maester, whose name I can't remember, Maester Crescent, I think it is. He comes in and he's you can't do this. This is wrong. This is heresy. All the rest of it. It's kind of setting up something that again isn't that important in the show. but it's just it gives a sense, it gives the character something to do, it gives the character some sort of introduction, and we can then build on for the next couple of years with Stannis, and then as the Lord of Light becomes important to other characters, and there are other women in Red who have other opinions on what the teachings or prophecies or whatever the fuck they are mean. Then it becomes something slightly different again. But for the moment, it just seems to be this odd blind acceptance, this blind faith, which I think is just misplaced.
Yeah, I totally agree. It obviously is misplaced, but odd. I don't know so much. Religion
I mean misplaced in terms of the show.
Okay.
I don't mean misplaced as in misplaced faith in the actual God side of it, but misplaced in terms of it doesn't belong here.
No, not necessarily, but then this show has a lot of elements that don't really gel together anyway, and this just feels like this again kind of belongs with that whole kind of slightly more mystical edge that the show has with the White Walkers and the dragons, as opposed to the politics of chasing the throne. And it's here where those two most directly collide head on, which is probably why it feels a little off. I like it. I've always found that side of Stannis and Melisandre quite creepy, much in the way that the cult is creepy, as you said, and I like that. So I do enjoy this storyline. So it's always a good time for me when we're over here seeing creepy shit happening. So
there'll be some creepy shit.
Yeah. Plus, Melisandre's never the hardest person to look at. So.
Well, no, there are two occasions where she really fucking is.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll get to that as well. I tell you something I noticed in this scene, actually, at the end, or this group of scenes, if you like, which I really should have noticed first time through, and maybe I did and just didn't twig until it became important later on, but never noticed that her necklace glows. Maybe I just did on a subconscious level, and so it was never important.
I never did.
Like, well,
I never did.
Her necklace glows when she's doing magic.
But that's what I was saying again. It's watching it back with hindsight. It's very easy to pick out these things that you go, "Oh fuck yeah, I can see how that works." Whereas at the time, there's just, and it's not a criticism as such, but there's so much detail.
I think that's excellent.
In every little aspect.
Like, suspension of disbelief. I've never questioned how she's able to do what she's doing, and when the necklace does come to become more important later on, I never question it then either. I was just, okay, I'll buy that. As I say, suspension of disbelief. But the fact that whole mechanism and system is there, and is there from day one, from more or less the first time we see her, that's the kind of shit where you go, look, you can get that right. How do you get everything else so fucking wrong when you can get simple things like the narrative arcs wrong, but something like the minutia of something like that, where most people aren't even going to care and then nail it.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Because there's so much minutiae, there's so many details in every single scene. That you don't know what matters and what doesn't. Because there are some things the fact that most times you see Tyrion in the first 2 or 3 seasons, he's getting drunk, he's drinking something.
Yeah.
You come not to think about it. You come not to look at the cup. There's a thing. Which happens much later on, I think it's in season 8, where Varys does something, and actually it's repeated from season 1. And it's a detail. If you saw it in season 1, you might remember it. But then it's so bloody innocuous. I'm not going to say what it is because it'll give away part of Varys' story.
I know what you're referring to, though, and that's a prime example.
But it's so innocuous, it means absolutely fuck all at this stage, because you think, well, it's a thing. But then when you get to it,
to be fair, had I not read about it on Tinterwebs afterward, it had been like 6 years since I'd seen season 1 when that happened. I was like, I can't fucking remember that.
Well, that's it. That's the thing of it. And because there's so much of that, and they get so much of that right, it's really then frustrating when they get the big shit wrong.
Very frustrating. But yeah, that's nice. And yeah, just our introduction to this group of characters. I like them all, so I'm quite happy. I mean, Sir Davos obviously will go on to be in every subsequent season and be quite a major player in the show.
Yeah. Yeah, and I quite liked as well. I mean, I've written in my notes. They're having this scene around the table, and obviously we don't see a great deal of this location because very soon Stannis will march forth somewhere else or sail forth somewhere else, and you don't see Dragonstone again, I think, until season 7.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So I mean, it's again, I'd forgotten this all happened there. So I mean, you see that as well, but then so you have this big scene around the table where they're all talking about strategy, and he's like, "I'm not fucking joining forces with my brother because he's claiming my throne, and Robb Stark's a thief and an imposter, and Joffrey's an imposter and a thief," and he's just like. He's going through all the reasons and recapping all the stuff that we've already seen in this episode, apart from Renly. So who gives a fuck? But yes, I mean it's an interesting scene. But then you get the bit with the Maester again, where he poisons his chalice to give to Melisandre, and Davos sees it, and he's like, "Don't do that." But no, again, it's the sort of character he is, whereby he's like, "I'm trying to do the right thing, but I'm not going to make an example of it. I'm not going to call you out because that will cause you problems." And I'm not that sort of person. I would rather just say, "Look, fucking sort yourself out. We can deal with this. Just don't go through with what you're thinking of." And it just falls on deaf ears, and ultimately, the Maester takes a sip, and he ends up dying, whereas Melisandre swigs the damn thing, downs what's left of it, and is absolutely fine. And again, you just got Davos looking at that and going, "Fucking told you so."
Yeah, I mean,
prick.
Sir Davos, he's an interesting character, because certainly for these first few seasons that he's in, I could never quite put my finger on what his game was and what he was playing. And as you really get to know him, get under his skin, turns out his game is nothing. He's just a thoroughly honourable, nice dude who doesn't want to see any bloodshed, particularly, and will just generally act in the most level-headed and reasoned manner.
Yeah, and I mean, again, there's a line with Stannis where he makes a comment about thieves, and he directs it at Davos, and again, you get the sense there's this nice backstory coming whereby he's going to be some sort of braggart or all the rest of it, and as it turns out, even his crimes, as they were done with the best intentions and were honourable. So I mean, it's interesting because you don't see that many characters set up this way in this show. There
are a few, I think, if any, whiter than white characters in this show, but I think Sir Davos is probably the closest that you will come. Like, yes, he has had some past transgressions, but they are, as you say, done with good intent. So
yeah, but again, I think that's one thing we can all relate to. We all try to make good decisions. We all try to do the right thing. Sometimes shit happens, and I think that's fair. That's something in the show that. We say nobody's whiter than white, but very few people are in real life anyway. Everybody's got something. So I mean, in that respect, there's something that you can draw and say, well, I try to do things properly. We try to do things right. Sometimes things go right, sometimes things go wrong. But I'm generally not a bad person. Or then you go down the Joffrey route of saying, well, I'm a cunt, but fuck, I don't care. And I think it's one thing that they do quite well with some characters is that they do portray that sort of. There's a bit more realism and a bit more. There are a few more shades of grey involved. There aren't too many purely good or purely bad characters in this show, and sometimes it works really well with the writing, and the acting is usually pretty solid, but sometimes the writing is a bit lets them down, and other times it's absolutely spot on. I mean, where you get Tyrion talking about his past and stuff like that, it works really well, even though he's saying that yes, things went wrong, but this happened or that happened, or I learned from that. And again, it just as a viewer, lets you feel something towards these characters. It's not just, he turned up drunk to my party, so make him drink to death. Yeah. There are layers to a lot of characters.
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry, that was a bit of a rambly way of saying what I'd already said.
But you reinforced your point well.
About 4 times, I think.
So, okay, moving on then from them, because geez, we're going to run long if we don't start moving on.
We're actually further into the episode than you think.
Yeah, well, we're actually rounding the bend towards the final straight here. But as I say, this stuff is all good from here on out. So we get everything with Robb is excellent.
Yeah.
But the scene between Rob and Jamie is great, full of tension. Again, it's Jamie pushing buttons. Yeah.
Yeah, it's my favourite scene of the episode because, I mean, he's there pushing buttons, and just the way he speaks to Rob is that he's the same with everybody. He's very familiar, he's very condescending. Apparently I just said Siri off for no reason, don't know why. He's very familiar with everybody. He speaks to everybody in the same tone. He doesn't talk down to Rob, even though he probably feels like he could. He mocks everybody in the same way. He deals with everybody in the same way because he believes, because he's a Lannister, he believes he's better. And so you get that straight away, and he's not taking him seriously. But then Rob has this everything that Jamie throws at him, he's got a response for, even down to, well, no, everybody knows that. No, everybody knows that your nephew isn't actually your nephew; he's your kid. That's out.
Yeah.
So you can't hide behind that anymore because everybody knows. You can deny it all you want, but it's out there. And then, talking about the fact that yes, okay, he trusts his bannerman with his life. He just wouldn't trust them to not sell Jamie back to the Lancers for a shitload of gold. So there's this whole thing, everything Jamie throws at him that Rob's got a response for, and then even down to sending in a fucking direwolf to very, very successfully menace him.
Boss.
Now that thing was fucking huge at this point.
But again, see, time in this show, so Daenerys has been walking for 3-4 months maybe, and last time we saw these direwolves, they were still relative pups.
Well, I mean, I think the last time we saw that particular one, it was biting somebody's fingers off, and it looked like a husky, like a normal-sized husky dog.
Now you could ride it.
Oh, fuck yeah, this is battle cat size now.
But it's fucking awesome. Again, just the power play from Rob of just showing to Jamie that he is in control of this absolute monster, and his control and his mastery of this beast is such that he can stop it inches away from Jamie's face and it will not flinch without an order. It is a real, back up, don't fuck with me, because this direwolf will eat your fucking face.
Yeah. Now, there's only one problem I had with this scene. Rob is, there's the back and forth between the two of them is brilliant, and then when Rob lays it on that, we know that we know that Joffrey's your bastard son. We know that, and you threw my brother out the window because he saw you with the Queen. How the fuck does he know that all of a sudden?
Yeah, there is a lot of there's a lot of jumping to conclusions here, isn't there?
Yeah, where did that come from? Because we know that Sherlock Catlin found a blonde hair in the tower, which could have belonged to anybody because people have blonde hair. And all of a sudden, we've got this jump that because Joffrey is Jamie's bastard son, Jamie must have thrown Bran out the window.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Again, we as an audience know because we saw it.
It's not the first time people have jumped to that conclusion in this show narratively either. That has happened before.
No, it's not.
And it's bad. It's bad writing. Simple. We need to know how he's come to that conclusion.
Yeah, but we never get there. We just get, and you threw my brother over a window. Did I? What? What the fuck? Where'd you get that from?
Yeah.
That was my only problem with this scene. Apart from that, I thought it was absolutely perfect.
Yeah, minor stuff, I suppose. We move on to what is probably my favourite scene.
But only because of who's in it.
Yeah, I guess. But yeah, we move on. We get Littlefinger and Cersei in this just immense power play.
Oh, sorry, you've missed one. I thought you were talking about the scene with Shay and Tyrion, which again is entirely fucking pointless.
I've not even written any notes on that. It doesn't.
I've just written down what the fuck is the point of this scene.
There you go. I've not even bothered making notes. Look, it's nice. As you said, any time we get to see Tyrion is great. I think Shay is wonderful, as I said last season as well. So it's fine. Quite happy to see them. It is probably there only to remind us who Shay is. But we move on. The next important scene we get is between Cersei and Littlefinger, and there is just this absolutely superb power play between the two of them.
Yes.
And I've mentioned time and time again in season 1, given the right material, Littlefinger is fantastic. Given the piss poor material that he gets most of the time, he's cringeworthy.
Yeah, but I mean, I really like the scene. I mean, it's, as I said, there's the power play in it, but I think that there's one thing that Littlefinger did a lot of in the last season, especially with Varys, where he talks in riddles and he tries to make out how clever he is, and he likes to think that nobody. It's these sort of very thinly veiled things where he thinks that if he says them in such a way, people won't call him out on it, and most people don't.
Cersei will, though.
Ned sort of did. Once Cersei just wasn't having any of it, so he makes this some veiled comment about, he grew up in other people's houses. He grew up in foster care, effectively, as it would be now. Grew up in other people's houses. People took him in, looked after him, but he never let him get close enough to the girls in the family, because that way leads to problems. And I have heard in some families that even brothers and sisters form certain allegiances or become overly close, and that becomes a problem. Again, having just seen the fact that Stannis has outed Jaime and Cersei, and Rob has just called Jaime on it. Now Littlefinger's calling Cersei out on it, and Cersei's the only one who responds, because her first response is, she lets him talk. He makes this thing on knowledge is power, and straight away she sees him, kill him. No way to change my mind. Power is power. And you see the look on Littlefinger's face when he realises that he's massively overplayed his hand.
It's wonderful. Her performance in this scene as well is superb. Her delivery of power is incredible. Yeah. And an example of, guess, I would imagine that line exists in the book and has been ripped from it. But
probably.
An example of just how good this show can be.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, I mean, anything with Lena Headey right up until the end of season 6, beginning of season 7, is absolutely spot on. She doesn't miss a beat, and it's only, I think, when the writing goes a bit off and they don't know what to do with her.
Yeah, I would agree.
I mean, they kind of turn her into a pantomime villain towards the end. They
absolutely do. That last season, she is a cackling pantomime villain.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the problem is that at that stage, the directors don't know what the writers are intending. The writers don't know what the directors and the cast are going to do, and it just turns into a big old mess. And I think she's handled so well up until, as I say, midway through season 6, might be the end of season 6. I think that right up until that point, she doesn't miss a beat. She gets everything absolutely spot on, and then it's like they recast her in season 7, and they bring in somebody who has never seen the show, never read the books, has no idea what this character's about, because it's just all over the fucking place. And I don't think that's her fault, because I've never seen her in anything where she gives a bad performance.
I think the majority of the time with this show, when there are issues, I think the majority of the time it is not the actor's fault. I think, as I've mentioned before, in general, I think all of the cast are absolutely stellar. They just don't necessarily get the right material. There are one or two exceptions. Occasionally we get a bit of a duffer.
Yeah.
But generally, and sometimes what are generally very good actors do turn in a bit of a ropey performance on this show as well. But in general, the cast are all excellent. And like I said, it's when you get scenes like this where they are well written and well paced and the dialogue is on point, this cast just soars and these scenes take off. This is edge of the seat stuff.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. It is a wonderful scene. So yeah, love it.
Yeah. The one thing I liked about it as well is she's exhibiting this power to Littlefinger. She's like, this is the power I wield. Where she's like, slit his throat. No, wait, I changed my mind. Take 3 steps back. Turn around. Close your eyes. Stand on one leg. It's like she could tell him to do whatever. She could tell him to have a mass orgy in the middle of the street. And they would, because she's the Queen Mother or the Queen Regent or whatever she's been sold as. That's the power she has, and I think that's the sort of power that Littlefinger would fucking cream himself over.
Yeah, absolutely. So wonderful scene, and then we cut back to Rob again. This time with Kat.
Yeah.
And
again, this is another one. It's a scene in 2 halves, and the first half actually is important for the narrative, but it doesn't. It just seems to drag a bit. It's a short scene, but he's dictating his terms of peace to Tywin, knowing to a Lannister nephew to go back to Tywin, knowing full well that they're not going to be accepted. And it's just one of those, and it just gives an excuse to show that yes, he's got all these lords around him who are sucking his dick and kissing his arse and all the rest of it. That for no reason whatsoever, at some point in the middle of the scene, someone just goes, "King of North," and then they all join in and say, "What the? He's still fucking talking." it's so frustrating, and then you get to the second half of it where it's the next scene technically. So you end this scene where they're all dismissed, and Theon says, "Oh, you need my father's help. I can get my father's help. No, your father who fucking hates you and I've let you go off with Ned Stark to be his slave. You can get his help." And he almost comes across as sincere. He's talking about how much Ned meant to him, the fact that Ned taught him various things. And then straight away, the next scene is Kat going, "There's no fucking chance in hell we're doing that. I'm not doing that because I don't trust him." And straight away, you've got all these advisors and all these people kissing his arse, and the one person who will tell him straight is his mother.
Wonderful. This scene, but it's a wonder. Look, again, I'm going to sound like a broken record wherever Kat is concerned, but whenever she gets to interact with any of the other Starks and she gets to be this matriarchal presence, she is amazing. And the pair of them absolutely nail their dynamic in this scene. Like, they do all the way through, to be fair. And I mean, I think the thing that gets me with this scene actually as well is that all the way through it's been like she's his mother, he's still a little boy and she's still looking after him and all the rest. And in this one there's a massive turning point where he's like, "No, you're going to do what I fucking tell you to now because I need you to. I know what I'm doing. I'm not a child. I'm not playing at this. I'm not playing at war. There's a strategic advantage in you doing X, Y, and Z." So where she thinks he's being petulant and saying, "You're going to go to wherever it is and go to, I think, Stoneglass, I think it's called. You're going to go here." I said, "Why would I do that? No, you need me here." Said, "No, I need you to go make peace with Renly or go join forces with Renly or wherever it is. There's a strategic thing I need you to do." And all of a sudden she sees him as being a general. He's actually leading an army and he's contemplating a war. He's not just not out to get the guy who killed his father. He's all of a sudden knows what he's fucking doing. And the penny sort of drops for her, and there's sort of this newfound respect almost between the two of them, where she's like, "Okay, I will do that for you because that's what you need." As opposed to her going, "I know what's best for you. I'm going to tell you what to do, and you're going to listen, but in such a way that it's motherly, and you listen and still think it's your idea." All of a sudden, he's like, "Oh fuck, you're actually a man who knows what he's doing." Yes,
and it's played absolutely perfectly as well. I think the two of them absolutely nail it right.
It's a wonderful scene. It really is, and it does. They tread that balance between even. In the scene, they flick back and forth between him being king at North and him being Kat's little boy, and then back to him being king at North. Like, they handle that dynamic perfectly, and it mirrors then the next scene where we see a similar situation played out with Cersei and Joffrey. And again, it just highlights what an honourable man that Robb has grown to be, and what a good ruler that he should come to be, and certainly the general that he is, compared to the snivelling little
child,
snivelling little jizz rag that is Joffrey, really.
To be fair, we've talked. Like I mentioned earlier, we talked about him last season being kind of emo. He's going through that thing now. He's painted his bedroom walls black.
Yeah. This is his MCR phase.
Yeah, it's like I can't have flowers and vines on our throne room wall. That throne is for a ruler, so I need fucking heads on spikes and shit like that to show people how powerful I am. Because as Tyrion pointed out earlier on, I am actually no fucking good for anything.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it like that. But
I'm not a leader. I'm not a warrior. I have nothing to show for anything. So I'm gonna make a point. I'm gonna make it look like I really know what I'm doing. I'm a really good king. I'm a really good warrior. When in fact I'm a snivelling little jizz. I quite like that. And then as they go through the scene, he alludes to the fact that he knows, or he's heard about the story of Jaime and Cersei as well. And she's our enemies will say anything to undermine you, and he straight away puts it back as to being about him.
Yeah.
Well, it's not about his mother being slut shamed or all the rest of it. My enemies, they say these things because they know they can't beat me, they know they can't best me, and they put too much stock in their women. And immediately he just turns it back to it's got to be about me. Why would it not be about me? I'm the important one. I'm the king, goddammit. And it's that petulant child thing. And again, he again goes too far. Whereas the previous scene, it shows the sort of the honour and the respect and the Robb holds, the esteem he holds his mother in, the fact that he relies on her as an ally rather than as his mother. And Joffrey's just she's just another woman who's not as good as him because she's not king.
Yeah,
I'm
he
king.
pushes her way too far.
And whereas they're already he's kind of acknowledging that. Well, I don't care if you're a slut and my uncle's actually my father because my father cheated on you anyway, so fuck you. And he kind of the way he phrased it, it's just, I'm not surprised you took whores when you grew bored of you. And she gives him an absolute fucking belt. Which, again, I was quite happy to see, and I want to see more of it. But the response of everybody, it's like that thing in the room where the pin drops and everybody's, and they're waiting to see what happens next, and then he turns around to look, and they all start whistling and carry on working as if they've not seen or heard anything. Yeah. And I really liked it for that, and so they delivered that bit. And then again, again going back to what we were talking about at the start with the way they're moving his character forward, he's like, that anybody else, and that's treason. Just think about that next time. I've already shown I'll take somebody's head off, so just have a little think, woman.
And
don't get above yourself again.
Yeah, and again, I think it sets the dynamic again, though, because his words, and it does come through in his delivery as well. His voice quavers when he says it.
Yeah. Anytime anybody challenges him, especially a woman, anytime he's challenged, his voice does sort of quiver a little bit, as if he doesn't know how to take it because he doesn't feel that they have a right to challenge him.
And he knows full well that he can make all the threats in the world that he likes.
Yeah.
That is his mother, and she ain't no normal mother neither.
No, but even when it's Sansa earlier on as well, he doesn't know how to deal with that, and he thinks the only way he can do. And part of it is because of the way they're setting his character up, the way they're moving him forward. But part of it again is that you think back to the way that Robert treated Cersei.
Yeah,
he was violent, he was aggressive, he was dismissive and disparaging and largely chauvinistic. And if that's your role model, of course you're going to go down that way, that route. Of course you're going to be a complete prick to women because that's all you've ever known.
Yeah, that's what you've been exposed to from an early age.
Yeah.
And I guess that is his role model as a ruler as well, if you want to follow that through to its logical sort of...
Well, yeah, I mean, we talked about Robert, and there were some really nice touches to Robert's character, but Robert was a bully.
Yes.
He was a hot-headed, temperamental bully, even to a point where he was going to execute Ned for treason one minute and give him his job back the next. It's like he didn't know if he was coming or going because he was ruled by his emotions. Joffrey isn't so much that way. As we'll find out later on, he's a bit of a robot in later episodes and in the next couple of seasons, whereby he doesn't have emotions. He doesn't derive pleasure from a great deal.
No.
He just kind of wants to see how far he can push things and what he can get away with because he's a snivelling little shit. And yeah, it's interesting that I hadn't really thought of it in terms of how Robert was portrayed. But yeah, there's a very definite parallel between the fact that he largely had a problem with women expressing opinions, and Joffrey seems to be the same.
Yeah. Imagine that, a poor attitude towards women on this show.
I know, I can't believe it. I can't believe it's there.
Not on such a progressive, forward-looking show as this, where all women are treated with such respect.
Absolutely, just like characters in their own right.
Just like in the next scene, where we get a repeat of the worst scene ever.
Yeah, although I do like it as a callback. I think it's entertaining. I think it's funny.
I found it fucking hilarious that they would call back.
The fact that they've
scene.
gone back and done it. I mean, they dropped the best line.
Yeah,
but the fact you have Roz delivering it,
did we? But
well, that's it. But I mean, the fact you get Roz now delivering the same speech, the little thing I gave her, the same direction, the same word for word, line for line, the same intonation, everything is absolutely spot. It's rehearsed. She's been rehearsing this ever since the day she got there, knowing full well the little thing would rehearsed it and done it countless times before as well. So at the start, you get that scene, and up as far as clean yourselves off, you're both working tonight.
Yeah.
That's all perfect, and then the scene goes off in a different direction. Whereas this time, you get the guards come in, and this kind of just sets us off on it's the last proper scene of the episode, and then it tails off into the conclusion. But you get the King's Guard come in. Cersei just had her authority challenged by Joffrey, who is technically the king, but she's still in charge. She's had her authority challenged. So her response is, okay, well, we know the king fucked other people, so let's go and round up all the bastards. So now going back on all the work that Sherlock Ned has done, and the guy before him, whose name I can't remember, the guy who was hand before him, John Aaron, going back through all the work that they've done and all the people they've spoken to and all the bastards they found, she now sends the King's Guard to go and start rounding them up and killing them all, so they can there's nobody making a claim on the throne because Joffrey is the king, and that's what they've got. No, that's the they've got to, and that's what she's been working towards, her family on the throne. Joffrey is the king, so let's go and get rid of anybody who has a claim. Now, it's done in such a way. Again, we only saw this woman once in the previous season, where Ned found her, and she had a baby, and she said, "I don't care if he's king. I just want to be with him." So, and responsible, you're just a whore he bought and paid for. Why would he want to leave his throne and his kingdom and all the rest of it to come and live with you? So we go back to this woman and her baby, and rather callously you get a scene where the baby is executed. You don't see the baby being executed because killing kids on TV is kind of a no-no, apparently. So you go in, and the guard the soldier who takes the baby from the mother can't kill it, so then the one who I think his name is Slint, I think he's named as at the start of the episode, I think his name is actually name checked, he goes along and he draws his knife, he goes up to the baby, and then as he's sort of leaning towards to cut his throat, you then cut away, so you don't see it, you only hear it. You hear the baby stop crying, and then the mother breaks down in tears. So, I mean, you get that, and then that leads into a scene whereby they're rounding up all these other bastards and thinking of innovative ways to kill them. The first thing I thought is, how fucking many did he have?
Oh, there's a fucking lot in there.
Because there must be like 6 or 7 that we know about in this scene that they killed.
Old Robert put it about a bit before. By the look of him.
But he was a fat old fucker. He was a bloated, dirty old bastard.
He was also fucking king, though, wasn't he?
I was going to say, I suppose he was king. That's what I was going to say.
I mean, look, both our fucking princes are ginger, but they both fucking scored. So, royalty obviously does something.
I'm doing that's to fucking know what.
Yeah.
But anyway, but yes, I mean, you get that, and then there's one scene I mentioned it last week. When we talked about this, there's a scene whereby there's an entire baying crowd of people and 4 guards, and the 4 guards are holding them all back. Which, fuck me, they must be strong. But it reminded me. There's a scene in season 3 of The Man in the High Castle, which I'll describe the scene. It's not a plot. It doesn't drive any narrative. It's not plot related, so I can go into it. But there's a scene in that whereby the soldiers have all rounded up all the Jews in the neighbourhood, and they're executing them in the street. And the last child is there, and the child is there crying over her dead mother and all the rest of it. And the soldier puts a gun to her head, pulls the trigger, and it jams. So he pulls it again, it jams. He tries to cock it and all this, it jams again. And they get to a point where the crowd is baying for these soldiers' blood. And again, in that, there are only about 4 soldiers. The difference being they've all got like machine guns, whereas these ones have just got pointy sticks and gold armour. But he picks up this child and swings it and smashes it head first into the wall, and thus kills it. And again, you don't see it. It's done in the same way they killed the baby in the previous one, whereby just as it's about to make contact, you get the noise, but you don't see it, and the noise is horrific. Mm-hmm. But it's the way they've kind of set that up. And then, but again, you say, well, why is nobody overpowering these guards? Because there's fucking millions of you in the street. You could quite easily get past them and stop them doing this. And then from that, you move to they find the guy who's been looking after Gendry for all these years and sent him away, and he sells him out in fucking record time. And again, you're thinking, why is nobody standing up to? Yes, okay, they're the King's Guard, but nobody seems to be willing to stand up to them when it's just been made public that actually the king is illegitimate. Surely surely even the dullest of person, even Hodor, could realise that there may be a connection between the two events.
Yeah, but then you have to question how much of King's Landing would want to in order to overthrow the guards here, you have to want to overthrow the king, essentially.
But if there are enough people there baying for blood, they're baying for blood, they're trying to stop them killing this child. Good to know. I think this is the one where they're carrying the baby away, hanging
dead
up
baby
by his
foot. Yeah.
There's a crowd there that's ready to riot, but they don't riot. And there's like 4 guards there.
Yeah.
That doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
The crowd, they are just peasants at the end of the day, aren't they? They have no armour, no weapons.
And the way they've been sort of set up, I think it's the second scene where the small council meeting where they're talking about the long winter coming, and the response is, well, there'll be fewer peasants. They don't belong in here, and they should be out in the fields. So I guess it kind of reinforces the fact that there's a general disdain by the ruling classes towards them
Yeah,
anyway.
and this is what I'm saying. Like, yes, obviously it's hideous that they're dangling a dead baby by the foot in front of them. But, these are very poor people, and self-preservation will kick in. And if you overthrow the king and throw the kingdom into, well, essentially anarchy, then where does the money and the supplies come from? Where's your next meal coming?
Yeah. People very rarely think of that when they start riots.
Yeah, I know, but I
Viva the revolution and all that.
Well, yeah, you don't have to push too hard with me at this point in time, I tell you.
No, fucking tell me about it.
But yeah, I just don't think that's there in King's Landing yet. We sort of get there in a couple of seasons' time.
Yeah, true.
But I don't think that's there yet. It needs a figurehead for them to unite behind, which certain sections of King's Landing will get as the show progresses. But I don't think they have it here.
Yeah.
This is still very much a populace in fear of their ruler, and particularly Joffrey and Cersei. They are quite, as you said earlier on, they are quite tyrannical. So these guys are scared. So.
Yeah, I would just say, public outrage generally has a way of manifesting.
Plus,
but
also, any kind of member of the public just stepping up here, just purely from a narrative point of view, steps on our closing scene.
Well, yeah, that's true, and that's what I was going to get to. Obviously, so the blacksmith who was harbouring Gendry sold him out quicker than you can say, no, he's a bastard. And yeah, so all of a sudden, they know he's heading north to the wall, and so we cut away and we get a scene with we see Arya for the only time in the episode. She's sat in the back of the cart with Gendry. Hot Pie's there, some random blonde kid who never speaks after they threatened to kill Arya a couple of weeks ago. He's there, and then that's it. We kind of cut to black and. No sign of a fucking Hobbit or a White Walker.
But Gendry, mind you, gets the full-on hero shot treatment. Like, he's shot from below as the cart is going away. And again, he's set up as being the true heir to the throne. Like, his story is perhaps the most wasted arc in this entire show.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we'll come on to this time and time again. The character of Gendry is largely useless in as much as it's not used. But there's so much there that they've just ignored, and they've thrown it away. And we talked about this at the end of the last season, so I'm not going to go on again, but they throw his character away time and time again to the point where they might as well not have him. And
like I said back at the start, and I said we'd talk about this when we got to it, I have to believe that in the books he is going to be used.
You have to. I mean, there's no reason for it to be there. Because
he's been set... Yeah, he has been set up again. This is that Chekhov's gun principle, like with the comet. Sorry. Like he's there for a purpose. We are not being shown Gendry for no reason. Like, we are being shown somebody wielding the power to correct course on all of this. He is the actual heir to the throne. He needs to be used. He needs to either be killed because of it, or he needs to rise to power, or at least inspire others to rise to power. But he does none of that.
No, he just
ambles around,
falls into oblivion. Yeah,
it's criminal.
There you go. We'll rag on that every time he's on screen, I think. But we'll leave it there for now.
I guess in summation, this episode is okay. It's thoroughly, resoundingly okay.
Pointless.
It is not the best season opener I've ever seen, but then very few season openers are any good anyway. It lacked pace, I thought, in a lot of places. It was very disjointed. It lacked
direction.
It did lack direction.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of this narrative, I felt it just kind of... They were like, okay, well, we just need to remind everybody who's who and where they are. So we'll just jump from set piece to set piece to set piece to set piece. Oh shit, we better tell some story as well. Fuck, we've got 10 minutes left.
And some of those set pieces really landed, others didn't.
Not so much.
Serviceable. Meh.
Meh. I mean, I haven't watched ahead, so I don't know where we're going next week. I'll watch that probably next Monday. But yeah, I don't really... it hasn't really set up anything for next week.
Not at all. Or for the season in general, I feel.
Well, that's it. I mean, given that, especially that...
Other than Gendry, which goes fucking nowhere.
I mean, given that a standard TV arc at this point, when this was made, this came out in 2012, a standard TV arc for America was still 24 episodes.
Yeah.
So we're already talking a reduced series of 10 episodes. So you're wasting one of them not going anywhere. You haven't set up what's coming in the next 9 weeks, but you need to, because you haven't got 23 weeks to break yourself in and have a big finale.
This will be a problem with the show every season, though.
Well, yeah, especially when you get to the reduced seasons in 7 and 8. But yeah, it's just really frustrating, and it's something that I found going through every year. It's like they waste so much time, but don't achieve anything. They put so much on screen, but so much of it's superfluous that you just think, well, you could have spent more time with this, or you could have spent more time on that, or hell, made an episode 45 minutes instead of an hour.
Yeah.
There's so much of that, and it's something that's going to come up time and time again. But I think that's the overarching problem with this episode, is that it just feels like this is the previously on bit before the episode rather than the actual episode itself. The only thing it does that's useful is introduces Stannis and the Lord of Light.
Yeah. I guess there's one or two things useful, and let's say it does feel like perhaps it's setting up Gendry's arc, but sadly that will go nowhere. So yeah, final thoughts on this. Look, it's okay, it got me back in. I'm excited for next week's, but meh.
Yeah, I think that's kind of fair. I think that's probably the best way we can leave it. It's serviceable, as you said.
Yeah.
It's there, and we're stuck with it, but it could have been better.
Yeah.
So yes, I mean that's North Remembers. Let's say, let us know what you think. If you want to drop us a line, gom@ddpodcast.net. You can find us on Facebook with Double Up Podcast Network. You can find us on Twitter @ddpodcastnet. But yeah, as always, get in touch. Let us know what you think. Tell us we're idiots. Tell us we're wrong. Tell us what you agree with. Tell us we haven't sworn enough this week, because I think we're probably lacking a little bit. But yeah, get in touch. But until next time,
game over.